it's like a alternate universe that these people live in, okay? The rest of the world is like looking at a ever-evolving door of mass murder, killing, pillaging, and destruction and ethnic cleansing. But domestically, they're having these like talk shows and intense debates over, logistical shit about running the Israeli state, or on the more unhinged side of things, on how quick and how intense the genocide is supposed to be. Okay, let's start out with the news, with the breaking off ceasefire and a little bit of analysis from our friends over in Al Jazeera. This is
Al Jazeera podcast.
40 minutes away.
Today, Gaza reels from one of its deadliest nights as Israel shatters the ceasefire.
From now on, Israel will act against Hamas with ever-increasing force. From now on, negotiations will take place only under fire.
What's driving
fucking pieces of shit? Holy fuck. Yeah, the negotiations will take, we will do negotiations by killing. This gentleman is openly saying it.
Israel's decision to reignite this war? I'm Kevin Hurton, and this is The Take.
Wonderful, a new child subscriber.
Overnight, as most Palestinians in Gaza were sleeping, Israel launched a series of strikes.
We woke up to the sound of strikes tonight.
Which what is that supposed to be called? What is that supposed to be called? That's supposed to be called Israel broke the ceasefire. Israel broke the ceasefire, but somehow they're giving us a pitch that they're not breaking the ceasefire, but they are putting pressure on their so-called enemies by using fire. So they haven't broken the ceasefire. They're just using fire to make sure the ceasefire lasts.
Wonderful, a new child soldier.
We woke up and got out of the tents to the street.
Ziad Ahmed lives in Han Yunis.
They fired a missile here near us. We looked around and found fire coming from the strike. While we ran to see what had happened, we found a second missile had been fired.
And also, they're not even indirectly saying it. They're saying it very directly. Like, our negotiation tactic includes quite literally telling you either accept our resolutions or we will murder your people. It is, we will murder your civilians or you accept our resolution. And that's in the best case scenario. Realistically, it's we will murder your civilians until you accept our resolutions, and then we'll move the goalpost and then ask for other stuff and proceed to murder civilians. Because the end goal, as we've said 5 billion times on this channel, and if you don't understand this at this point, you're very fucking strange, or you masturbate to Gal Gadot or some shit. The end goal for Israel in Gaza is for there to not be a single Palestinian left. Either they leave or they die. That's it.
The tents were on fire, the women started to scream, and children were terrified. Of course, everything escalated suddenly. We ran towards the screams.
What, Gal Gadot, isn't that the name of the fucking IDF Marvel lady?
Ziad was able to recover some from the rubble, but the Gaza Health Ministry estimates that many
They just got a star on the Walk of Fame. Fucking crazy.
The victims are still trapped beneath.
Not like it matters, but a very, just heavy message, like this incredibly pro-IDF individual that also served in the IDF, as bombs are falling on the heads of Palestinian civilians, is being celebrated for what kind of fucking superstardom shit. Thank you very much. Pinkerbell. Protesters interrupted an awards ceremony for Gal Gadot the other day. Oh, really? I love it. Never change.
They bombed us last night, and people rushed to the streets in the middle of the night. The martyrs couldn't even be buried. No one knew.
Thank you, Cenk Pecker. We love Cenk Pecker. Thank you very much. Israel says it's carrying out extensive strikes against Hamas in Gaza, throwing doubt on the fragile ceasefire. Throwing doubt on the fragile ceasefire. Yes, I am throwing doubt on the consistency of your face when I hit you with a baseball bat, okay? I am not breaking in your head. I am throwing doubt about the consistency of your nose, your eyes, your forehead, etc., etc. So you can't call the cops, little bitch.
would bury
Are
them.
we surprised? Am I supposed to do a crazy dunk? Oh my God! Look at how Western media is reporting. Like, who's surprised? Who? Gosh. The best thing that Western journalists covering Gaza can do right now is fucking and take another one and shove it up there.
Palestinians were left asking why.
What do they want from the wounded and devastated people of Gaza? The U.S.
I don't know, guys. Are you doubting that the ceasefire will continue? Are you doubting? Is my microphone level fine? By the way, it's peaking on my shit.
supports Israel.
Power level edging. Matt, some of you have the best headphones in the fucking game. Some of you have the best headphones in the game.
With all kinds of military equipment available in the Middle East and in its stockpiles. We have become a testing ground in Gaza for Israeli-American strikes.
Russia carries out special operation as fragile peace holds. Imagine, dude. Yeah. Remember when we were all sitting and rightfully pointing at the Russians and being like, yeah, special operation. Yeah, denazification. Yeah, that's definitely what you're doing, bro. And yet somehow when Israel pretty much uses the same rhetoric, but arguably does even worse because they are hyper-focusing on targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure as their main kind of target. Not saying that the RF doesn't do that either, but with the Israelis, it's the main fucking target. Then it's no. Like, you're being fucking anti-Semitic because the magical Jews apparently are saying things that you have to believe because it's coming from Israel.
Just want to understand from them, what do they want from us?
Al Jazeera did
400 people blown to bits is fragile peace. Exactly. No. It's like it's as if they sent like a letter where they were like, we don't like you guys. But in the letter there were the cut off limbs of 400 people.
Digital's Gaza reporter, Maram Humaid, says she was woken up by her daughter. She asked her what was happening, but she couldn't reassure her.
The war is back. And the bombing is still in place right now in Gaza. Every now and then there is a bombing and there is an intense hovering of water planes overhead and in the skies of Gaza. And we just hope that this nightmare won't continue and it would be stopped very soon. People of Gaza wouldn't endure more of this suffering and more of this horrific scenes of the war.
My guest today has been following it all.
Even the amount that they've endured up until this point is almost unseen on a global level. And there was a slight inkling of hope from the great peacemaker that is still struggling fucking half a year in to ensure any sort of peace while sabotaging almost every single American relation that they have. A grain of hope, and now that grain of hope is taken away. That, to an extent, unfortunately, is maybe even worse than if the ceasefire never took place. And don't shoot me here, obviously. While the ceasefire lasted, probably tens of thousands of lives were not taken, and I completely agree. But when you give somebody, like when somebody is experiencing something as absolutely fucking horrific as what our Palestinian brothers, sisters, and NBs are experiencing, and then you give them a little bit of hope for a month or two, and then you rip that hope right out, the psychological effect that has on every single individual and the wider population is unimaginable to us privileged little fuckers over here.
From Haifa, we spoke on Tuesday, the evening after.
It speeds up breaking the spirit. It just speeds it up and speeds it up and speeds it up.
After the attack.
My name is Diana Boutou, and I'm a lawyer and analyst based in Haifa.
So, Diana, Israel attacked Gaza, shattering the already fragile ceasefire that had been in place since January. Things were already on edge, and around 2 a.m., all hell broke loose. Tell us what happened. Tell me how this horrible night unfolded.
At 2 o'clock in the morning, Israeli airplanes entered into Gaza airspace and bombed all throughout the Gaza Strip. A lot of the places that they bombed were the areas that were the places that were the so-called safe areas. So particularly in the central part of the Gaza Strip. But they also hit in the north, in the.
You ever read Viktor Frankl's Man's in a Search of Meaning? In Birkenau, he said the most heartbreaking and soul-crushing moment was when the Red Cross came and gave them little to no help. Absolutely, it's a great book. Great book. It is, Kaylin, I'm very surprised, honestly. I'm not telling you that you're not somebody that reads, but it's my partner's favorite book of all time. It's a fantastic book, and truly, without a life without meaning, covered in alienation, is arguably not worth living.
South, all throughout the Gaza.
But then it becomes worth living in the pursuit of finding meaning, right? So it's a very, very nice like hope pill that even if you have not found the meaning of your life, which I'm very privileged to have, spending this time with you, trying to agitate for my worldview, etc., in many different avenues. But even if you have not found it, that's not supposed to be a black pill. It's supposed to motivate you in your continuous search towards it. Because with meaning, even in the worst situations, you can rise above and meet the challenge. But sometimes the challenge is so petrifying, such as what our Palestinian brothers and sisters in NBs are going through, so fucked up that purpose and meaning needs to be so fucking strong. And seeing just how strong and how resilient Palestinians are is, to my simplistic Balkan mind, literally unfathomable. And that is why I respect it. It's almost, a LARP, not LARP, I genuinely believe, unitas mundi, blah, 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 human union, we're all the same, etc., etc. But Palestinians are something else, man. Just fucking built different. Absolutely fucking built different.
Gaza Strip, there wasn't one particular area. And this is why we're seeing so many people who've been killed, because it's all dispersed throughout the Gaza Strip. And the hospital...
Dude, they gave them 2 months so that they can start creating areas in which to congregate and basically survive. What rebuilding? There's no fucking rebuilding happening. Attempts at rebuilding, but come on, let's not fucking cope here. So they waited for them to basically create new population pockets, and then they started hitting the newly created population pockets. It's like logistically improving how many people they can kill with as less American taxpayer money as possible. It is a genocidal efficiency.
Hospitals have been unable to deal with all of the people who have been attacked. We're still, at this hour, pulling people out from the rubble.
The testament from Mahmoud, the intensity of the bombing in western Gaza was so violent that many people killed were thrown out of their buildings. Their flesh was collected from the streets and the yards of other homes.
They were bombing people as they were asleep. And it wasn't just the individuals, their entire families that were wiped out.
Honor, we're talking about honor here. Not only does it come from the air, not only does it hit children, civilians, but you do it while they fucking sleep. You do it while they fucking sleep.
As they were sleeping.
The fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas shattered by Israel launching a new wave of attacks, killing hundreds of Palestinians. The strikes...
It's like they're min-maxing how cowardly they can be. They're min-maxing how the most dishonorable options at their disposal to utilize against who? This is not a fucking Goliath moment, bruv. You're the Goliath, bitch. And yet, you're fucking kitted out in armor and with a fucking AR-15 against kids in rubble. Like, what are the Zionists giving as arguments to support this? What?
Hit homes and displacement camps, wiping out entire families in moments.
And we fully expect that this death toll is going to rise. The reason that I expect that it's going to rise is because this wasn't just a question of Israeli aerial bombardment and bombing, but also because for the past 16 days, Israel hasn't allowed any humanitarian aid to get into the Gaza Strip. That includes everything from food to fuel to medicines to much needed medical supplies as well. And you can see that the medical system is on the verge of collapse. And so what Israel's doing now is it's just bombing people. 90% of the buildings in the Gaza Strip have been bombed. This is now just going after people and trying to inflict as much damage as possible and to terrify people even further after 15 months of genocide.
Yeah, Al Jazeera's Tariq Abu Azum reported that most of the airstrikes have been on heavily built-up neighborhoods, makeshift schools, and residential buildings where people were taking shelter.
Yeah, that's exactly what has happened. Just this morning, the Israeli army then announced that there are people along the...
Because you want to even break the idea that they put, I mean, they've already broken this idea, but these ideas kind of refresh, unfortunately, in people's minds because they're looking for hope. So you want to break the idea that even if there is any potential ceasefire or any potential agreement with the liberatory forces in Gaza or the civil administration in Gaza or whatever, with the Israelis, with the wider West, with the United States, that at any point can be broken. The overarching kind of like ideological imperative here is to make Palestinians truly believe, truly understand, no matter what, that there is no way out of this situation for them except to admit to fate and die or to somehow leave, right? You do not want, like, you want to not just crush hope. You want thought of hope to be considered cope, to use internet language.
Eastern part of the Gaza Strip, that they should also flee. And remember, there have been hundreds of these evacuation orders. They're at the point now where they're bombing people in tents, in UN schools, in hospitals. And the part that is so disturbing in all of this is that I just don't see anybody pushing Israel to stop. Quite the opposite. I see that the cheerleaders have come out and they're pushing Israel to continue and to do it even harder and faster and fiercer.
So, Deanna, Israeli officials had been publicly saying for weeks that they were preparing plans to resume the war should ceasefire talks break down. This happened days after they came back from a round of talks in Egypt about the second phase of the agreement, which was supposed to lead to a permanent end to the war. What is the Israeli government saying officially about why they're doing this? Why they are doing this now?
They're actually not really saying a whole lot other than that they want to see all of the Israelis released.
Everything I've read, basically they're saying, why should we negotiate without putting mass murder on the table as a negotiation tactic and tool? They're like, we are holding all the cards. You are at our mercy. Why are we trying to talk to you as an equal? You are not. You are worms. And you will listen or you will die, which also is a lie because the long-term plan is for them to all die.
As of this morning, Israel is operating with full force against the Hamas terrorist organization in the Gaza Strip. We have reached this situation after the Hamas refused proposal to extend ceasefire and to release our hostages.
One of the things that has been so striking about this is from the very beginning, Netanyahu, on the eve of the ceasefire agreement, pretty much announced that it wasn't going to last.
שהשלב הראשון של ההסכם הוא הפסקת
As soon as he was elected, President Trump mobilized to secure the release of the hostages. He spoke to me on Wednesday evening. He ran with the agreement, and he rightly emphasized that the first phase of the agreement is a temporary ceasefire.
And so they're not even really providing any form of an excuse as to why they're re-attacking Gaza. They're doing it because they know that they can.
Yeah. One of the statements was, if Hamas does not release all the hostages, the gates of hell will open in Gaza. That was Israel Katz said that. And Hamas, it seems like, sniffed this out pretty fast. They said, well, we're not going to release without some sort of guarantee that as soon as they're gone, you're going to just immediately start bombing.
On that point about what Katz said,
and their point has been proven.
This is simply parroting what Donald Trump said. Donald Trump earlier on said that he didn't want the Israeli captives released in a phased approach, that he wanted them all at once. And the reason that he wanted them all at once is because, again, it feeds into what exactly Israel wants, which is...
Yeah, and it also feeds into his whole character of the art of the deal, like him, I will outsmart the Arabs by telling them there shall be peace if they release the hostages, and then wazah! We shall kill them all, and the gates of hell shall open. Literally, like that's Freud, Hugo, psychoanalysts.
They want all of the Israeli captives, and then once they're out, then they want to bomb Gaza even further and flatten the place. And they made this clear from the very beginning.
This strategic explanation with Trump now in the White House saying he openly wants to displace the Palestinian population and build a Riviera in Gaza.
I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
But it should be said that Trump is also one of the big reasons that the ceasefire was there in the first place. So do you think that Netanyahu has a complete green light when it comes to Trump, total war to accomplish this new displacement goal?
That, for example, is a good question. Let's see.
I do. I think he does have a green light to do whatever it is he wants to do. And the reason I think that he has that green light is because while initially Trump was involved and pushed for the ceasefire, at the same time, we've seen just how much effort has been, how much Israeli effort and how much Israeli attention has been paid to Trump, and how they have really pushed this idea of expelling Palestinians, ethnically cleansing Palestinians, of creating this so-called Riviera. And this is exactly what Netanyahu's dream, this is his fantasy. So you have an Israeli prime minister who's always believed in ethnic cleansing, who's been pushing and who's been now charged with war crimes for genocide, coupled with a U.S. president who views the world as...
Ceasefire was just celebration for Trump's inauguration and all the bloodshed he will unleash, which is impressive because Harris would be equally bloodthirsty. Yeah, ironically, with Harris, we might not even have the ceasefire. That's the crazy fucking part. That's the extra unhinged fucking part. But yeah, it was to an extent a PR stunt that nonetheless probably the Israelis gave him shit for, but he apologized, he kissed the feet, and we're continuing.
Some sort of real estate deal. Never.
Like sometimes these deals are like ridiculously basic. We're talking. The president of one state calls the president of the other state, says, can you slow down for like 2 months, so that everybody claps and says how fucking amazing I am, and then you can restart it, and in return, I'll give you a couple of $1 billion worth of taxpayer money in the form of drones and bombs and planes. Sometimes it is as simple as that. I see them based on intent and cultural ancestry. I draw comparison between them and the Confederacy more often than Nazism, especially with the AFD around now. Not Elon, though. He's just a Nazi. If we're talking fictional fascist regime, though, then I compare them to Caesar's Legion from Fallout. They are very Caesar's Legion from Fallout. Because they believe that they are civilizing the barbarian hordes, and even at the potential cost of the majority of the population of the barbarian hordes. But I do not believe that Israel, like Caesar's Legion, like wants to colonize and wants to inject the different tribes it conquers into its wider empire. We're talking about the Fallout New Vegas thing here. Israel is a pure ethno-state, based on the belief that one people are superior and deserve a large Lebensraum in which to continue existing. So the mere existence of two Palestinians in Israel is unacceptable to them. So the long-term, not even Palestinians in Israel, like any stable, secular or not state in their surrounding, which stands in some sort of solidarity with the Palestinians, will also not be allowed to continue existing. So I don't know who to make the parallel with, because Israel is not behaving like an empire. It is behaving like a very, very classic, violent ethno-state, which just wants to secure the borders that they believe they deserve because they read it in a book.
Never really looking at what his plans actually mean. He doesn't have the bandwidth or the attention span to be doing anything.
Caesar's Legion genuinely believes that they are civilizationally more developed and that they deserve to utilize violent methods in order to basically conquer most of the wasteland and then switch into an NCR-style government system and then basically create a very large and very stable quasi-democracy, etc., etc. So they do not feel ethnic or cultural superiority over their subjects. They just genuinely believe they're stronger, and by bringing people in, they can create a bigger ideal, right? Very, very similar to Roman thinking, right? Romans didn't think this or that group is just disgusting and they cannot be converted into the Roman way of life. Well, Israelis do not believe that Arabs can be converted into the Israeli way of life unless they happen to be Jewish, and they need to be exterminated permanently.
Anything. And so when he gets a nice, convenient plan like, let's just ethnically cleanse Palestinians, it sounds good to him.
Yeah, there's never going to be a better opportunity is probably the calculus. We know.
So enclave, maybe enclave. There you go. Okay. It's a bit LARPy what we're doing here, but still relatively interesting, because the Israelis are so fucked up. The Israeli state is so fucked up that we can't even find a fictional fascist group that is as fucked up as them, which says how fucked up they are. Sorry for saying fucked up so many times, which is very fucked up. But yeah, Enclave. Enclave is on fucking point. Enclave is on fucking point. Not only cultural, but or technological, but ethnic superiority. Fucking literal skull measures. Enclave are skull measures. In this case, the Israelis, the Jewish identity, Wiwa, versus those who are not in the part of the world that they deem their own.
I know that the White House was consulted about these strikes beforehand. White House spokeswoman Carolyn Leavitt confirmed that on Fox News.
The Trump administration and the White House were consulted by the Israelis on their attacks in Gaza tonight. And as President Trump has made it clear, Hamas, the Houthis, Iran, all those who seek to terrorize not just Israel, but also the United States of America will see a price to pay. All hell will break loose. And all of the terrorists in the Middle East.
It wasn't just in consultation. This is U.S. weaponry. Remember, since Trump has taken office, he too has continued the supply of weapons that the Biden administration first began. And he's been making sure that Israel has as many weapons as it wants. This is why I'm so worried, because you have this combination of Netanyahu and his goals, and Trump and everything that he's been doing, and you can see that there's nobody that's putting the brakes on the United States or on Israel.
More with Diana after a quick break. There's a personal element to this as well. Netanyahu is dealing with a lot at home. He's on trial for corruption. He's facing a ton of pressure politically from the families of the captives. And
No, people harp on this too often, and I'm gonna do the typical fucking Marxist talking point, anti-imperialist talking point. It doesn't really matter. They all agree that all Palestinians need to die. This is not really fucking relevant.
And his coalition partners.
But it is relevant in the context of talking about how much Netanyahu might want to intensify the process of genocide in order to protect his political career. In that context, it's relevant. But the genocide is going to happen no matter if it's very fast because one guy wants to stay relevant, or because it's slow because more liberal Zionists come into power.
Those on the right who say he's not going far enough. How much of this suffering that we're seeing in Gaza right now do you think redounds to just what's going on in Netanyahu's life?
You know, Palestinians always pay the price for Israeli political choices. And Palestinians always pay the price for Netanyahu and his own.
Yeah, in this case specifically, he resumed the bombing the night before he was supposed to testify his own corruption trials, right? Yes, absolutely. So it has an effect. But the effect that we're talking about here is simply the timeline of mass murder, not whether it's going to happen.
Own political career.
Everybody go check out Maple Takes. Very, very good friend of the show. Always a pleasure to see you in chat, my dear friend. Always a pleasure to see Le Basado Canadiano. I'm a strong Canada stan now.
This is being done at our expense, with our lives.
I want you to do your best to incentivize radical dislike of the American state inside of Canadian borders. Okay, balkanize North America even more than it's balkanized now, my friend. For obviously for the good of all.
Our bodies. The reason that he has resumed these attacks on Gaza, it's no coincidence that today he was supposed to appear in court for yet another day of his corruption trial.
I've been on that shit for years, and there you go. Proven right as always, these fucking commies.
It's not at all surprising that we learned today that Itamar Ben-Gvir has resumed and rejoined the cabinet after leaving the cabinet back in January over the ceasefire agreement.
We heard from Israel's national security.
Everything that is happening politically inside of Israel is like absurdly surreal. It's like a alternate universe that these people live in, okay? The rest of the world is like looking at a ever-evolving door of mass murder, killing, pillaging, and destruction and ethnic cleansing. But domestically, they're having these like talk shows and intense debates over logistical shit about running the Israeli state, or on the more unhinged side of things, on how quick and how intense the genocide is supposed to be. Israel has been for a long time, but now hypersped into being a almost surreal plane of existence where ethics and morality has been pushed so far right that the overtone window no longer exists. It is outside the overtone window. They have created their own bubble in which every option, every step, every direction is taken over Palestinian corpses. It is post-rational. It is post-fixable. It simply is. Unfortunately, of course.
Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir saying that he would resign if this goes ahead. He urged Benjamin Netanyahu to pull out of the deal, which he says only whets the appetite of Hamas.
You can't pull the overtone window for a particular place back when they are outside of it. They are outside of it. It's just an incredibly deranged place where what you and me consider reality is not reality. It is like quintessential proof that ethics and what we consider to be normal and real is an inherently subjective context, and that morality is built on material relations, and ideological experiences. Basically, the only thing you know. There's pure proof. Israel is pure proof that motherfuckers like Nietzsche were right.
It's not at all coincidental that we see that Israelis are protesting and very angry with the Netanyahu government because they don't trust the government and they certainly don't trust him. And he knows that the only thing that he can do to maintain his political survival is to carry out massacres against Palestinians, to ethnically cleanse Palestinians, to carry out genocide. This is what will win him votes. It's what will win him coalition power. And it's what will keep him in office.
Back to Gaza, we have hundreds of casualties. The hospitals are overwhelmed. But even before this happened, people who had been were living on tents on top of rubble. Also, Israel had halted all humanitarian aid, which means limited food, limited supplies, limited fuel. And this is all happening in the middle of Ramadan.
Brain rot, exactly.
Can you try to paint us a picture of the desperate conditions there, even before the attack? This Gaza is very different to the one that Israel first attacked in the autumn of 2023.
Yes, this is a...
There's no fucking, there's no fucking Gaza. It's not different. It is annihilated. Hi, Yugopnik. We're fighting back in Kansas among a sea of hogs. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, my friend, and welcome to the community.
Population where the UN
Keep up the good work.
is estimating that over 1 million are facing malnourishment. And this is because over the course of the past 15 months, there hasn't been an adequate amount of food that's getting into Gaza. The quality of the food that has been getting in is not good. Doctors are reporting massive dehydration.
There's no roofs. There's no fucking roofs except tents. No, the lady is lovely. The lady is phenomenal. Massive respect. Everything she's got. But I just want to add, everyone's homeless. You know how you pass homeless people, and if you have a soul, you're like, this is extremely fucked up. Now imagine your whole city is that. Your whole city is that. And it's been for months and months and months and months and months. And not only is your whole city homeless, but there's motherfuckers throwing grenades through fucking windows and blowing up the homeless all the fucking time. So you got to think about how to feed yourself, how to get water, and how to survive. Non-stop. How to not get diseases. How to wash your fucking body, your fucking children's body. It's just a massive fucking area with hundreds of thousands of homeless people that are being fucking purge-style hunted by some of the world's most fucking barbaric imbeciles. That's the state in Gaza. And somehow it's become worse than it was before, which, never, be careful what you fucking say, it could always be worse. I never imagined it could, but apparently it can.
Almost everybody has had some form of stomach problems in the Gaza Strip because of the lack of food and the lack of sanitation. In the Gaza Strip because of the lack of food and the lack of sanitation. In places like the central part of Gaza, there isn't any drinking water any longer. People have been drinking water that is unfit for human consumption.
Israel shut down electricity to Gaza's main desalinization plant. It's 500,000 Palestinians rely on this place. And we can assume...
some fucking relatively wealthy Americans LARP post-apocalyptic survival. They would not last 2 days in Gaza. This is post-apocalyptic survival. You don't have to watch The Walking Dead. You can watch The Walking Dead, but on a very, very, very hard difficulty, because in Gaza, the zombies have planes and drones and missile systems, etc., etc. And they rain. Imagine Walking Dead, but the zombies have planes. That's Gaza. But, it's worse. In The Walking Dead, there's still standing buildings. From here and there, there's, some infrastructure left over from pre-apocalypse. But the zombies, IRL, the Israeli zombies, the IDF zombies, IRL, are also, smart enough to work on killing all the sources of water or food in your place. That's the fucking context for internet pilled people like myself, okay? IRL, like, you want to, those very cringe TikTok videos where they're ranking different zombie apocalypses and which one you would be able to survive. Well, what about zombies with planes, missile systems, American high-end intelligence service, etc., and their ability to tinker with your infrastructure? How about that zombie movie? Well, it exists. It's called Gaza.
At least half of those 500,000 are under 18.
Yes.
When you're cutting off drinking water.
People thought sprinter zombies were bad. Wait till they meet the fucking IOF.
To children. You just run out of ways to describe.
Pandas. The Walking Dead for Palestinians would be a fucking walk in the park.
What they're doing.
Genocide. That's it. From the beginning, I and others were saying that this is going to be an attack on children.
And then they ask the American state, oh my God, look at the zombie apocalypse over in Gaza. And the American state says, it is very concerning. The best I can do is send $20 billion to the zombies. And once they win, you know how much money we can make from the zombies by making a beach zombie resort? A beach zombie resort. You wouldn't fund that movie because it sounds completely unrealistic, right? Well, it's happening in front of your fucking eyes.
Because when you look at the makeup of the Gaza Strip, more than half of the people who live in the Gaza Strip are under the age of 18. Anything that is done in Gaza is going to affect children. We're now looking at the highest number of child amputees in the world.
Thank you for the 4
We're
months.
looking at a place where it's the unsafest for a child to live in the world. They wanted to attack the most defenseless people in the world to make sure that they can't ever have a future. That's the essence of genocide.
So Israeli officials are saying this is just the beginning. They say they're carrying out extensive strikes on terror targets, and they've ordered Palestinians in large swaths of Gaza to leave their homes. There's speculation of a renewed ground invasion now. Foreign Minister Gideon Saar
apparently it might have started already, but we cannot confirm the sources.
Said without the release of our hostages, Israel has no alternative but resuming military operations. No alternative.
But of course they've had an alternative. From the beginning, Hamas said that they were willing to release.
It's insane we have to address this. It's insane he has to address this.
Release the Israeli captives in exchange for a halt to the bombing. This was within the first week of October the 7th. Israel then decided that they didn't want that because I don't think they've ever really wanted the Israeli captives back.
And from 46 minutes ago, thanks to my lovely Ufigi, I fucking love you, Ufigi, marry me. Gaza updates, Israel launches new limited ground invasion. Israel's military, Israel's military said its forces have moved into central Gaza to extend control over a military buffer zone that splits the territory. It comes as Israel ramps up pressure. Because Israel ramps up pressure! They killed 400 people. Kraut fucking... I swear to God. The Israeli military has launched a limited ground operation to retake part of the key Gaza corridor. The Israel Defense Forces posted on X that forces took control and re-extended their control of the center of the Netzarim corridor. Israeli troops had withdrawn from it, a military zone that divides Gaza into northern and southern halves, as part of the ceasefire agreement in January. So they're breaking every single ceasefire agreement. The surprise is very big, and we are all very surprised. Troops had earlier patrolled the corridor, partly to prevent evacuated Palestinians from returning to the north of the territory. What do we call that? What do we call that? That's called ethnic cleansing. That's literally called ethnic cleansing. Okay. Return to warfare endangers the lives of hostages. Israeli peace activist Kirschenbach. Man, bro. Oh.
First wave of Israelis to be released was in November of 2023. And so we saw that there was a way. And yet, once again, Israel resumed. And here again, we've seen that there's been yet another wave of Israelis who've been released. And yet again, Israel has resumed. The problem here is that because there's nobody that's putting the brakes on Israel, instead we're seeing the cheerleaders, that they can make these sorts of statements. And some fool out there is going to believe them. But if anybody really wants to understand and wants to know what is happening, they'll look at the history records and they'll understand that it didn't have to be like this to begin with. The fact that the only way that Palestinians can be released from Israeli dungeons, from Israeli prisons, is through some sort of a prisoner exchange is perverse. And yet, this is the system that has been set up, is one in which the only way that Palestinians can be released en masse from the system of mass incarceration is through some sort of prisoner exchange. So there are alternatives out there. The problem is that we shouldn't have been in this position to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, the goal here is to eliminate Hamas, but this is not that. This is lobbing bombs from a safe distance into devastated communities.
You know, so even on this issue, there are rules to war, and the rules to war say that if a person is a combatant, meaning that they're actually engaged in armed struggle.
But my friend, they know this. That is why they redefine what it means to be an armed combatant. That is why they put tens of millions of dollars into propagating the idea that every single Palestinian is simply born with deep anti-Semitic hatred and wants to eat Israeli babies every single morning, which is very ironic because just statistically, most Israelis are like that. But when it comes to Palestinians, let's be honest.
Then they are targets. But if they're not a combatant, they're not targets. But what Israel has done is it's reversed everything, twisted everything on its head, that everybody is a target unless they prove otherwise. This is the height of dehumanization. That's why when you see the numbers of children who've been killed, the Israelis are calling them collateral damage. Israel thinks that everybody is a target, and that's the problem. Is that it isn't a person who is in active combat. It's that if you are in any way affiliated, if we even think you're affiliated, then you're considered to be a legitimate target. And this is the problem, is when I talk about how the international system has been turned on its head, this is precisely what Israel's done, is they've turned everybody into a target unless you prove otherwise. And there's no way to prove otherwise in this system. And so,
great points, but there is no call to prove anything in a unipolar system. Israel has the United States. What the United States supports is above international law. So, to an extent, the Israelis trying to quote unquote generate consent over how we should perceive the Palestinian people is something they're doing to an extent just out of relative courtesy, mostly to the American administration, especially the Joe Biden one. It's not a mechanism that makes sure that nobody comes and stops them as they're doing this to Palestinians. It's simply a PR courtesy for the electoral body over in the United States to swallow it a little bit better, right? As well as some more squeamish Israelis domestically as well. So that's what I want you guys to understand the difference, right? The reason they can do this is because power. That's it. Nobody's big enough or strong enough to stop the United States, nor do they care enough to, so they don't. When they're doing the PR pitch, they're simply doing the PR pitch in order to appease the American electorate and the more squeamish domestic Israeli electorate. Those two things have different goals, different purpose. Okie dokie? We understand? Very good.
Even with all of this technology that we have out there, all the AI that Israel boasts, for some reason, they still
You could call it something like manufacturing approval, creating consent. I don't know. I'm sure we can get a good name for this. Absolutely. But again, they are manufacturing consent for the American population and the squeamish Israelis. When it comes to the rest of the world is irrelevant, because when you have the American state apparatus, American capital more importantly, and the subsection of the American capital known as the MITS, military-industrial complex, then it doesn't matter who consents or doesn't consent, what consent has been manufactured or not. The only reason they're manufacturing it is we're post necessity for consent. This is not fucking 2005, okay? They're doing it just to like appease, to like, okay, whatever, let's fucking do it because why not, right? So that, the current American administration doesn't have to deal with too many PR problems that might rise out of this situation.
Still can't seem to just go after the people who are combatants, and it's because they don't want to. Their whole point is to terrorize an entire population.
Barricade armed incident outside CIA headquarters right now. Send me a link. Huh?
So that everybody is considered to be a target.
Also because manufacturing consent has become a business, so they still need to make money. That as well. Yeah, that as well. There's continuous fucking content on YouTube, on broadcast TV on the topic like rah, 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 so that it can generate capital. Because it's a situation that most people follow attentively, and unfortunately, I don't think the majority of them follow it attentively because they want it to stop or want something to change or believe something can change, but as a, kind of absurd entertainment.
This, again, is the height of dehumanization. I think that this is just straight up genocide. And I think that when we view it in its proper context of there's no fighting back. These were people who were asleep in their beds, they weren't even in beds because most of them were in tents. You can see that this is just a straight up massacre of Palestinians, and it's part of their process of genocide.
And that's the take. We really want to hear your thoughts on today's episode. What did you think?
Thank you very much for the take. Always interesting takes. But jokes aside, very, very, very good report. Now we're moving over to the most relevant news that have come in